Hey everyone, John and I are taking this week off, but we didn't want to leave our fans hanging without a new episode. So instead, we decided to play back one of our most popular episodes from season 1 titled Plant-Based. If you've already had a chance to listen to this episode, here's another refresher, and we'd ask that you share with a friend or family member. If you haven't, take a listen, and I think you might find it pretty interesting. On that episode, I was joined by a good friend of mine, Alan, who had recently made a journey into the vegan lifestyle. And he joined us to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages and just some things that people won't normally think about when it comes to transitioning from a normal dietary lifestyle to a vegan lifestyle. So check it out, share it with a friend or family member. We'd love to hear some feedback from you. Thanks. First of all, Alan, I know we've been trying to get together for a little while and talk, and I appreciate you making time. I know you got a lot going on in your life right now with kids and homeschooling and tortilla chips and...
Mainly tortilla
chips, yeah. But one of the journeys I think that you started well before all of this was a transition in your life. So, we've talked about me kind of going on this keto lifestyle recently, and I've been really referring to it as a lifestyle because I am horrible with diets, and I also don't want this to have an end date. Right, so this is more of a lifestyle change than a 6-week mission. And you went on a lifestyle change a little while ago that transitioned over time, right? So you went from when I first met you being we'll call it a carnivore, to being a pseudo-vegetarian, pescatarian, I think is what it's called.
Pescatarian, if you will, yeah.
To dabbling in full vegetarian, to now dabbling in going vegan. And along this whole journey, you tried not to change other aspects of your life. So if you could, first of all, tell me a little bit about that transition into being a vegetarian / vegan. If somebody's thinking about making that switch now, what advice could you give them from your own experience?
I think the most important thing for me was, and it always has been, okay, what's the health benefit of, right? And so when you're thinking about transitioning, you think just like you're talking about with keto, there is an endpoint in your mind of what's important, why you want to do that, right? But for me, when I really stepped into, okay, I'm going to make this change, was really, what am I going to do to limit the amount of exposure to my body that is, for lack of a better term, a negative, right? And I remember the day that I made a decision I was waking up, it was early morning on a Saturday, and I was going to make sausage for me and Eli. And I'm like, you know what? I've never looked at the ingredients on sausage. And I'm like, let's see what really this is comprised of. And dude, it had, I didn't even know the words. I had to Google the words, right? I'm like, what the hell is all this shit that's in here? And I Googled maybe 4 or 5 different things that I hadn't seen. And there are obviously additives. I'm like, okay, what is this? And the thing I took the most away from it was may cause cancer. May cause cancer. And I'm like, well, what's the point of this, right? And so that was my whole thing. Deborah had been, we'll call it, pseudo-vegetarian for about 2 years. In fact, Tuesday, we talked about her. She hasn't eaten one single piece of meat, not even fish, in almost 3 years. And she's only 10. So I had that influence. And, we were always balancing out, what are we doing for dinner? Deborah's not eating meat. Me and Eli are going to eat meat. Really, what does that look like? And it was a pain in the ass. So I think mentally in the back of my mind, I was like, how can I simplify most of what our just normal life was? And what is going to be my reason to go to what Deborah was, or what Deborah was doing? Her whole reason why to not eat meat is because she loves animals, right? Though poor cows and whatever. For me, I don't really care about any of that. I love cows. Who doesn't? They're soft and cuddly or whatever. But I would eat them. So that was not my driving thing. That's why she did it. That's why Tuesday decided to do it. But for me, I'm spending, at that time when I made the decision, I was spending probably at least 1 hour weightlifting a day. I was doing at least 30 minutes, probably more like 45 minutes of cardio a day, and already watching what I eat. And I wouldn't really put it into the keto category, but very low carb. And I'm like, why would I do all that when I'm still putting this sausage, these carcinogens in my body? And on that day, I decided to change it. I believe that was right at the end of 2018. And so I decided 2019, I'm going to go full meat free. And I think at that point, it was, I went through all of January. Didn't drink that January either, by the way, which was a big deal.
That's impressive.
It was impressive. It actually felt really good. It's tough, but nonetheless, didn't drink that January. Also, no meat at all. Still had cheese. I still had eggs, but no fish or anything like that. And I felt great. It was awesome, but it wasn't, I don't think, because of the lack of the meat or anything like that. I think it was like the mental fortitude to say, hey, look, you can do this. Why did you really need the meat otherwise? Which was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, dude, went straight into that January, lightened up a little bit, started doing the pescatarian, but still with the end point in mind, or the end goal in mind, to be, if I'm doing this, I need to take care of my body in a way that I've never done before. And then that's when you had talked about the triathlon and stuff like that really started coming into play. Because when I took the eating seriously, changed that up, this is a mental switch. I took the drinking seriously, switched that off. Then that gave me the power, the ambition to go. It's like, well, what can you really test your body to do? If you can get over those mental hurdles, because it's really all it is.
That's awesome. Well, listening to you talk about your journey is pretty great. And you're absolutely right. It is all mental.
Yeah.
But I got a question for you. So there are tons of documentaries out there that talk about, why we should eat meat, why we shouldn't eat meat. And a lot of times it's hard to tell what the agenda behind some documentaries or articles or news reports are, because we don't know who the sponsors are. We don't know who the creators are. You don't trust the person telling the story. So let me ask you, as somebody who is active in working out, how has your body felt from going from a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet, and what adjustments, if any, did you have to make to still maintain the nutrients and proteins that you needed for your physical activity?
What's weird is that I didn't feel, and I don't feel even to this day, it's been a year and a half, without eating meat, except for here and there. But I don't know if I feel a difference at all behind that. What I did change was I needed to supplement protein. That was it. And my main objective has always been to gain muscle while still staying lean. And so that's where the no carbs came into the factor, right? Like still trying to limit as much bread essentially as possible. But I needed to supplement protein if I was going to continue to build muscle or at least get stronger, So the only thing I had to change from that, my eating times didn't change, still intermittent fasting for the most part. Worst case was 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., typically noon to 7. All that stayed the same as where am I going to find the protein? Nonetheless, balancing out the active lifestyle and for what my individual goals were was all about protein, making the switch from the meat to go away. And that was it.
Yeah, so for somebody who's thinking of making the switch, what it sounds like you're saying, if I can recap, one, a lot of it is mental. And two, in terms of getting the nutrients and proteins that you need for working out, there's no reason to overthink it. You might need to make up for it in other places, but it's not tragic either way.
I think when you really start, and when I think I'm just talking about fitness as a whole, when you start overthinking the routine and how your day is going to be planned, and that's from the routine from working out, but also for the eating. Start overthinking that, what are you going to do? You're just going to drive yourself crazy. There's enough out there right now, and it's the best time possible to ever either be a vegan, vegetarian, or start exploring that, because there's so many different options.
Well, and with all the restaurant closures, when you're forced to cook at home, you're able to make much better decisions and not be tempted by other things that would break your mindset into developing the habit and the behavior that you're trying to develop to get to where you want to be. And that's been really helpful for me too. So awesome. So another thing I want to ask you about, and we talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking offline, was we talked about building strength and losing fat at the same time, or building muscle and losing fat. And I want to segue into this because I think it's important for people to understand that going vegetarian or vegan is not a diet in the sense of it's going to help you lose weight. It is not a weight loss fad. It is not a weight loss diet. In fact, you could very easily gain a lot of weight by just going vegan or vegetarian and transitioning any proteins that you would have consumed into starches. If you could, talk to me a little bit about how making that transition has helped, what you've done to maintain your weight through that transition. And then, touch upon the difference in what your body needs to either lose weight or build muscle, and how you've been able to balance that through your journey to stay lean and continue to bulk up.
If you're attempting to lose weight and you're going to supplement anything with carbs, you're in trouble, right? Like, it's not going to work. But, we go into where our different options are now, which we spoke about. That allows you to really go into that same type of deal that you're doing with being able to manage low carbs by at least planning on or knowing what is provided to you. And then you can equate that to really at this moment, how much am I going to work out? And so that is the number one thing. If we're going to go down to brass tacks here with what managing any lifestyle is, and being able to sustain at least where you were or what you plan to be, you got to have a planned idea around what your body is used to. And so before I started the vegan stuff, it was, and we've talked about this when you were going back, you talked about diets and stuff before. I never ate bread. I didn't eat fries. I didn't eat rice. I didn't do anything like that. It wasn't about managing anything. It's like, if I had to stay away from that stuff, I know I'm going to at least maintain what my weight is now. So why can't I do that when I become a vegetarian? Right. If there may be different things that you will respond to differently if you don't have carbs. Some people can't do it. Like Deborah, dude, if she goes carb free for a day, she just she can't think, right? It doesn't work.
Yeah, my wife doesn't work for her. Jill's the same way. She can't not eat carbs.
It's impossible, and it's an interesting thing. I think his name is Dr. Agostino, and I follow him on Twitter. He's a good follow. He's full keto, and his wife is too. But they track, they do the finger pricks every day, and they have a full-on, whatever. What did I eat today? I'm going to test the blood and see what the difference was. When he goes, totally no carbs at all, he feels great, mental clarity, and that's kind of what I feel. But for his wife, they eat the same exact things. She has a completely different level of things in her blood, whatever those things may be, right? And she can't function, and everything changes. And so my whole point behind that, it doesn't matter if you're working out, trying to lose weight, or whatever, you're going to be different than I am, and I'm going to be different than the next guy. But until you go and try it and give yourself a chance to at least say, this works or this doesn't, then you don't stand a chance. And if you keep bouncing around to try different things, you're going to end up in the same result as what you were before, because you can't stick with it and you're overthinking it.
Yeah, you gotta grab the general idea, and you have to dedicate the time and the discipline to fine tune that to fit your body.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. It is all about your body and just finding what works for you. There's no cookie cutter solution.
No, and that's true. It all comes down to a process, and it could be a simple one, or it could be a very convoluted or intricate one. And meal prepping, just like you're talking about, never works for me, because what I end up doing is spending a ton of time doing that, and then I'll balance it. I'll just end up throwing away 3 days worth of food because I never got to it because I changed it. So what's the freaking point? But what does work is getting up in the morning, worked out, I come home, get the kids ready, I cook my food for the day. It's my lunch, I know, and I've already got ready for what I'm going to eat for dinner, and I come home and that's my daily plan. And you think in smaller terms, much easier, and you don't waste a ton of fucking food.
And I think the other thing that works, and I might even venture out and say that this works for everyone, is intermittent fasting.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Because when you reduce the number of edible hours you have in a day, you naturally reduce the number of food, or the amount of food that you can eat of any kind during that time. It works for me. It's been working for Tony. I know it works for you. I mean, you're a big proponent of fasting in general, whether it's full day, 2 day, 3 day, or intermittent.
And this is something that is not, obviously it's not new, but the studies around it are relatively new, or at least the way that we look at it in this generation. It is not even just from a weight loss thing or maintaining weight, but like full on, recovery from cancers to recovery from injuries. There is proven data behind what your body does when it fasts. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of a full 24-hour. Technically, it ends up being more like a 36-hour. But on Mondays, total fast, only water, and just getting your body a reset to start the week. Let me tell you, Tuesdays you feel great.
The last topic that I want to talk to you about in regards to this is how your experience has been through these 6 weeks of quarantine. So we've joked around, we've mentioned tortilla chips a lot. I think you found a new fascination with them during these last 6 weeks. But recently, you started getting back into the swing of your routine for working out. I don't think you ever lost sight of your dietary journey, but you've really started to get back into the physical activity journey. So what's that been like? What challenges did you experience from maybe falling off a little bit for 6 weeks or for a few weeks? And what adjustments have you made to get back into the full swing?
I took a month off, basically. Here's how it went down was vacation scheduled. I knew I wasn't going to work out. First time I had vacation scheduled for quite a while. I'm like, I'm going to see family, already in my mind knowing that I'm not going to do anything, which is fine. You got to give your body a break. The problem is we got back and normalcy went away. And so you talk about routine. First thing in the morning, gym. Second thing in the morning, school ready. Maybe after that, riding the bike. Like all that went away. So when I lost my routine, I lost everything except for still not eating meat. But so I lost intermittent fasting. I lost caring about anything that I eat whatsoever. I was like, oh, it's 7:30 in the morning. I'll have some chips. Those tortilla chips. So that was tough. Yeah. And I remember looking in the mirror, look, if you're losing weight or you're working out or whatever, half the time you spend in the morning is probably looking in the mirror or, glancing, like trying to figure out like, okay, am I still on track? First 2 weeks I was good, like I was like, oh, there's abs there. I'm good. And I turned that third week, dude, 3.5 weeks. And I was like, holy shit, what happened? Like it hit me. What's so crazy, dude, is that like it felt good, like the mental break, because every day full on process of like how I'm going to get better. To step away from that felt great because it gave me some clarity, like just not so focused on that one particular thing. But then I started to miss it. And so what I had to do was, we know gyms closed. We know that we can't just go out and just be, willy-nilly with what we're going to go do, even from activity from outside. So I had to really start planning for what it looked like to get back into it in this new quote unquote normal, right? Yeah. But I had to make a change. As soon as I looked at myself in the mirror and that one, I'm like, holy shit. And then we started talking about the weight loss thing, and you're down 24 freaking pounds or whatever. I'm like, well, shit, I got to try to catch up. And so, from my own vain ego stuff, I'm like, in my mind, I'm somebody different than what I see right now. So I had to start thinking about making the change. But I had to figure out, all right, if you're going to do that, if you're still going to enjoy this time with the family and kind of take away some of that mental stress, you got to start working out more and balancing it out. The good thing is that for me, I love working out. It's just, when am I going to make the decision to go after it again? And I'm an all or nothing dude. So when I step in and I decide I'm going to do it, I'm going to work out 3 times a day like I did today. I'm going to push myself to the limit. But it was all, the balance had to be restored, basically, and in my life. And what's going to be great about that is we're going to get back to whatever normal is soon, with at least in our jobs. And that will help, because I've already started the routine up again. So 2 weeks into it. The main things that I'm doing right now, because I didn't have any sort of workout equipment, was just push-ups. And so it's crazy how much strength you lose in just a matter of a month, by the way. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to do 100 push-ups. But not at one time, by the way. I could barely do 20. I was like, holy shit. So I did 20, whatever, 20, whatever, and got up to 100. And I was like, I'm going to add 10 more push-ups a day, every day. So the next day, 110. The Sunday, because I started on a Friday, 120. And now, so as of today, I did 230 push-ups this morning. And, but I got the resistant bands. And so now trying to figure out what workout looks like from that, right? So I'm Googling different things, and but you can do shoulders, you can do back, and you can do arms. I know that for sure, and that's really all I'm worried about. I'll ride the Peloton for legs, but spending full hours doing that now, in between doing the push-ups, with the next iteration going to be adding abs back to it, with some planks and things like that. But if I can do a full hour, just like I was doing before, with 30 to 45 minutes on the Peloton and running 3 or 4 times a week, I'll be back at it in no time, and I'm going to kick y'all's ass at that weight loss challenge.
Thank you, man. Thanks for jumping on today. I know we just to recap, we've talked about doing something together for a long while.
Yeah.
And then all this sitting at home doing nothing time actually spurred me to learn how to do some stuff. And so finally got together on a podcast. I hope we can do a whole lot more.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and completely open for it. It's fun.
Yeah, and I think anybody who listens to this episode hopefully will get some good input and firsthand perspective from what it's like to make the switch to being a vegetarian or a vegan, and really how to balance that with life and with working out and not really having to sacrifice anything to still get to the goals that you want to get to from a body perspective.